I'm standing in my kitchen this morning, and I'm holding something I haven't looked at in a long time. It's a letter. My wife Susan wrote it to me almost a year before she died. I didn't read it until after the funeral, and when I did, I realized something that's taken me 6 years to fully understand. Everything I thought I knew about love, about marriage, about what it means to build a life with someone, I got it almost completely wrong. My name is Michael. I'm 73 years old. And what I'm about to tell you, I wish someone had told me at 32 when I married the woman who would spend 41 years trying to reach me from across a bed I thought we were sharing. Susan and I met in college. She was in my English literature class. I was immediately drawn to her, not just because she was beautiful, though she was, but because she asked questions that made me think differently about things. She challenged me. She made me better. And in the way you do when you're 22 years old and you think you have your whole life to figure things out, I asked her to marry me. We had a small wedding in her parents' backyard, just over 100 people. I remember the reception more than the ceremony, if I'm being honest. I remember thinking about the promotion I was up for at work. I remember checking my watch more than once. And I remember Susan's father pulling me aside and saying, "Take care of her. She's special." I nodded like I understood what he meant. I didn't. The early years were what you'd call good. We had a tiny apartment, barely any money. Susan was working as a counselor at a community center, and I was climbing the corporate ladder at a financial firm. We'd stay up late talking, make plans, dream about what our future would look like. I was going to be successful. She was going to support that success. That was the agreement, unspoken, but understood. And then life happened. By the time I was 35, I'd been promoted twice. The money was getting better. We bought a house. Susan wanted to start having children, but I wasn't ready yet. "Just a few more years," I told her. "Let me establish myself more at work. Let me make sure we're financially secure." She understood, or I thought she did. Our daughter was born when I was 37, and I was there for the birth, at least physically. But by then, I'd already started the pattern that would define the next 4 decades of our marriage. I was always somewhere else, even when I was right there. I'd be at her birthday dinner thinking about a presentation due Monday. I'd be sitting next to her on the couch while she talked about her day, and I'd be mentally rehearsing a conversation I needed to have with my boss. I was reliable. That's what people would say about me. Michael's a reliable guy. He shows up. He provides. He doesn't cheat or gamble or do anything really wrong. He's just there, consistently there, like furniture in a room. But reliable isn't the same as present, and present isn't the same as connected. Susan would suggest things, small things. Let's take a pottery class. Why don't we go dancing any more like we used to? Remember when we'd stay up all night talking? Can we take a trip somewhere we've never been? And I'd have reasons, always reasons. Too tired, too busy, too expensive, too impractical. Work was demanding. The house needed maintenance. The kids had activities. There was always something more urgent than the woman sleeping next to me. I wasn't being cruel. That's the thing that haunts me now. I wasn't trying to hurt her. I just genuinely believed deep in my bones that I had time. That someday, when I made partner at the firm, when I'd achieved what I needed to achieve, then we'd do those things. Then I'd be the partner she deserved. We'd have our renaissance. It would all make sense. But that day never came. You know what I didn't see happening? And I think this is so important for you to understand, so I need you to really listen to this. I didn't see Susan giving up on asking. I didn't see her slowly accepting that I wasn't going to be the partner she needed. It happened so gradually, so subtly, that I missed it entirely. She found her friends. She got involved in book clubs and volunteer work at the library. She took up gardening. She built a life that didn't require me to be present because I'd made it clear through 1,000 small rejections that I wasn't going to be. She wasn't angry about it. That's what made it worse. She was just sad in a way that had learned to exist quietly next to me. When I think back now, I realize we lived more like roommates toward the end. Polite, considerate, fundamentally alone. We'd talk about logistics, who was picking up groceries, when the plumber was coming, whether we had enough money for the electric bill. But we stopped talking about dreams. We stopped talking about who we were becoming, who we wanted to be, what we hoped for. At 52, I made partner at the firm. I remember the day the letter came, the title, the salary increase, the corner office, all of it. Susan made my favorite dinner that night. She smiled and congratulated me and kissed me and asked about the office space, and I remember feeling like something should have felt different. Like this moment should have changed things between us. It didn't. By then, there wasn't much between us left to change. We had what looked like a stable marriage. 40 years in, we were still sleeping in the same bed. We still went to dinner with friends. People who looked at us from the outside saw a partnership. But on the inside, I was building a wall brick by brick, and Susan was slowly learning to live on the other side of it. The diagnosis came on a Tuesday afternoon. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. The doctor said 3 months, maybe 6 if she was strong. She was strong. Susan was always strong. She lasted almost a year, which the doctor said was unusual. She had that quiet strength that made her good at enduring things that maybe shouldn't have been endured. In the hospice, everything shifted. For the first time in decades, we talked, really talked, and it was in those final months that Susan told me things I wish I'd heard in the first 40 years. She told me about dreams she'd had. She wanted to be a painter. Did you know that? My wife wanted to be a painter. She painted a little, in secret almost, in the spare room when she thought no one was looking. I never asked about it. I never went in there. She told me about places she wanted to go. Scotland, where her grandmother was from. Italy. She wanted to learn Italian. She wanted to take a cooking class. She wanted to stay up late again and talk about poetry and philosophy and what made life meaningful. She wanted to feel chosen by me, not just tolerated. And here's what broke me the most. She never blamed me. Not once. She didn't say, "You wasted my time." She didn't say, "You were selfish." She just looked at me with those eyes that had been trying to reach me for 40 years, and she said something I think about every single day. "Michael, I don't think you ever really saw me. Not all the way. You saw the version of me that made your life easier, the version that didn't ask for too much, that understood when you had to work late, that managed the household and raised the kids and kept things running. But the whole me, the complicated, messy, dreaming version, I don't think you ever really tried to see that." And she was right. I hadn't. I want you to understand something. This isn't a story about someone who was unfaithful or cruel or abusive. This is a story about someone who did everything right, according to what he thought marriage was supposed to be. I paid the bills. I was faithful. I didn't yell or shame her. I came home most nights. I never said a harsh word. By any conventional measure, I was a good husband. But that's exactly the problem. Being good at the basics isn't the same as building genuine intimacy. Showing up isn't the same as being present. Providing isn't the same as connecting. And I spent 41 years learning this lesson far too late, paying for it with a woman who deserved so much more than to be merely accommodated. Susan died on a Thursday morning. I was holding her hand, and in those final hours when she was barely conscious, I kept thinking about all the conversations I could have had, all the trips we could have taken, all the times I could have said yes instead of not now or maybe later. After she died, I found her journals. She'd been writing in them for years, decades really, and reading through them was like discovering a person I'd lived with but never truly known. She wrote about feeling invisible in her own marriage. She wrote about specific moments that hurt her, times I chose work over her, times I was emotionally absent while physically present, times she tried to reach me and I gave her nothing to hold on to. But she also wrote about love. She wrote about the man she married, about hoping that version of me would come back. She wrote about trying to understand why I couldn't meet her, even halfway. She wrote with such compassion even in her disappointment that it made the regret almost unbearable. The truth is, I was lazy. Not in the way we usually think about laziness. I worked 80 hours a week. But I was emotionally lazy. It was easier to assume I knew Susan than to actually try to understand her. It was easier to follow the rules of what a husband should be than to actually become what she needed. It was easier to be reliable than to be vulnerable. And here's what I need you to really hear, because this is the part that matters for you. If you're in a relationship right now, I want you to ask yourself some hard questions. When's the last time you had a real conversation with your partner? Not about bills or schedules or who's picking up groceries. A conversation about dreams and fears and hopes. A conversation where you were fully present, where you actually tried to understand who they're becoming. When's the last time you did something just because it would make them happy? Not because it was their birthday or an anniversary, but just because they matter to you. When's the last time you looked at them, really looked at them, and felt grateful they're in your life? Because I'm telling you, there will come a day when that person isn't there anymore. One of you will go first. And when that happens, you don't get to go back and have the conversations you postponed. You don't get to take the trip you kept saying you'd take next year. You don't get to say the things you assumed they already knew. Susan and I had 41 years. 41 years. And I wasted at least half of them being comfortable instead of connected. Being right instead of being close. Being present in body but absent in every way that mattered. I kept a painting she'd done. It's still in the spare room where she made it. It's a landscape, mountains at sunset, a small cabin by a lake. It's quite beautiful. I never told her that. I never went into that room and asked her about what she was creating. I never sat with her while she painted and asked what she was thinking about, what the cabin meant to her, what she imagined happening in that landscape. But I know now from her journals what it meant. That cabin was her escape. It was the life she imagined living if she'd been brave enough to ask for it, if I'd been present enough to want it with her. I live alone now. My children come visit sometimes, but they have their own lives. I spend a lot of time reading the things Susan left behind. Her journals, her letters, her poetry. And I think about what it means to love someone. Love isn't just about not doing the wrong things. It's about actively doing the right things. It's about choosing to be curious about your partner even after decades together. It's about trying new experiences together, even when they're uncomfortable or unfamiliar. It's about having difficult conversations, especially when it's easier to avoid them. It's about caring about the things they care about, not because you have to, but because they matter to the person you love. 6 years after she died, I took a trip to Scotland, alone. I walked through the Highlands. I visited the villages where her grandmother's family came from, and I thought about how little it would have cost me to say yes all those years ago. A week of time, some money, that's it. And it would have meant everything to her. But I didn't. I said maybe later, and later never came. You still have time. If you love someone, if you share your life with someone, don't make my mistake. Don't assume they know how much they matter. Don't take them for granted, thinking you'll have endless opportunities to connect later. Don't be so caught up in building a successful life that you forget to actually live it with them. Ask them about their dreams. Listen to their stories. Do the things they suggest, not because they necessarily interest you, but because strengthening your bond should interest you more than anything else. Be present. Be curious. Be intentional. Because one day you might be where I am, sitting alone with old photographs and journals, realizing that you had everything you needed and you didn't appreciate it until it was gone. The question I want to leave you with is this. If your partner were gone tomorrow, what would you regret not having said? What would you wish you'd done? Don't wait for that moment to arrive to know the answer. This channel is full of people like me, people who've learned from decades of living, from mistakes we can't undo, from wisdom purchased at great cost. If this meant something to you, please subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a comment and tell me what you're going to do differently today, because the clock is ticking and the people you love deserve to know it right now, today, not someday. The time is now.